Last year, I took a look at a show called Ben 10. I had grown up on it and remember it going on for a while after I stopped regularly tuning in, but I wasn't prepared to learn how much left I had to cover. Ben 10 was one of the most lucrative Cartoon Network franchises of all time in its heyday, running for 5 series, 4 of which constitute the original continuity. And here, I'll share my feelings and analysis on the second of these series, Ben 10 Alien Force. Set 5 years after the original series, Alien Force took the franchise in a darker, more serious direction, with grittier aliens and deadlier situations. It was still recognizably Ben 10, same characters and sense of humor, but you've gotta wonder if they could pull most of this off. They jumped into a very different story pretty quickly after the original series ended, and it's said they left some aspects of the series jarring and confusing before quickly jumping into a third series even faster. It's still considered good, but there were some fans at the time who really didn't care for it. Speaking personally, this was the last series I kept up with before moving on to other things, dropping out sometime around the middle of season 2. I wasn't against the newer episodes, life just got in the way, but now I can return to it with a brighter and more informed perspective. It surprised me to learn that while Man of Action are still credited as the creators of Alien Force, none of the original quartet are credited as writers on any given episode. Instead, most of the plot was devised by Dwayne McDuffie and Glenn Murakami. The idea behind the second series, originally titled Hero Generation, was that Ben and Gwen were now teenagers mentoring a new wave of kids on Earth that have been stuck with alien technology. Shades of that still exist in the final show, but Cartoon Network was very eager to give the crew notes and suggestions until it had morphed into a very different setup. Glenn has referred to the final result as Scooby-Doo meets the X-Files, which couldn't be a cooler pitch if he tried. Famous illustrator Eric Kanish was briefly brought in to design some aliens, and although they look, in scientific terms, badass, I can get why none of them were used. They're a bit too mature for what was still, at the end of the day, a Cartoon Network show for tweens. But still, new concepts, stories, aliens, and plots with an aged-up cast is a very exciting mix of things to look forward to, and fans didn't have to wait long for Alien Force to premiere. Only 3 days after the original series ended, April 18th, 2008. While sure, I'm happy to have finally gotten a 2008 show off my bucket list, and a 2009 show review is all I have left to do to complete the set, which I'll get to sooner than you can guess, seems a little early to jump into a new series, doesn't it?
Ben, seriously!
This is a really bad time for a reboot.
Oh, and big parts of the series will be spoiled as the review progresses, so there's your general spoiler warning for the video. 5 years have passed since Ben, Gwen, and Max's summer road trip, and Ben and Gwen are now 15-year-olds facing the more mundane trials of extracurricular high school activities. That is until Ben decides to check up on Max and finds his RV deserted, with a cryptic message that he's investigating new alien activity on Earth with the Omnitrix. Only Ben finds the Omnitrix safe in his room and puts it back on soon enough, though it comes with an overdue software update and gives him 10 brand new aliens to use. So he, Gwen, and the recently reformed Kevin Levin team up to find Max and figure out what the ominous hybrid are up to. Sounds cool, right? Only they leave a few things unexplained. How did Ben get the Omnitrix off the first time? How long ago did he get it off? Why did the Omnitrix give him new aliens? When did Kevin get sent to the Null Void? Why exactly did he get sent there? Why is Vilgax barely brought up? How come Ben's cover was blown in the original series finale, but now they pretend that never happened? And most importantly,
I owe you a call.
did Ben owe him a call? Many of the details you'd want to know to get a good grasp on the character's actions are glossed over, or left to your imagination. Some things have been cleared up by the writers outside of the show, but I still think it would have been better if they offered a more detailed line or two about when Ben took the Omnitrix off or what Kevin did to get imprisoned. The premiere is a two-parter, they've got the time, it wouldn't have hurt the pacing. But the characters are still quite entertaining, regardless of how fleshed out they may or may not be. Ben has clearly grown up a bit. He's less of a rule breaker than before and really likes smoothies, but is by no means a perfect leader. He can still act before thinking, or act after thinking but not listen to those thoughts. That's how you know this is an older version of the character. They make the same decisions, but there's more to those decisions. And they like smoothies. His cousin Gwen has also mellowed with age to an extent, and gotten better at magic, using force fields and platforms with ease now. She's also the heart of the group, making sure they all get along, and having a meaningful emotional connection to share with both her teammates. And that third wheel is Kevin, now free from the null void, but still pretty rebellious, making deals with shady figures to sell alien technology behind the cousins' backs. He makes an effort to help out, see the error of his ways, put his absorption powers to good use, and impress Gwen when their romance arc kicks off. But through all his development, he still sounds and acts like a total geek. I don't know how, but they made him a way funnier character than he had any right to be. Just letting you know now, this show's humor is on point. One of their many allies is Ben's girlfriend, Julie, who's fairly book smart and accepting of Ben's double life, but I struggle to find her very interesting on her own. I can see people liking her though, and she ends up being boosted by adopting Ship, a member of Upgrade's species that acts like a dog. Favorite new character right here. And the reappearances of classic aliens don't stop there. Some kids across the country have mutated into Ben's prior forms and are wrangled by them to become a new set of Plumber's helpers. These include Alan, who can transform into a Pyronite or Heat Blast, Helen, a Kinoclarian or Accelerate, and Manny, a Tentremand or Forearms, the latter two becoming stuck-together outcasts. Did they need to be older aliens? Not really, but it was smart to represent them in some way, because Ben has a whole new selection of alien forms, which I'll go through now. The new gross one, but still useful. The new Ditto, but fused with an iPod accessory. Awesome. The flying type. Can always do with a mysterious one. Awesome as well. Likely my favorite of this series. Ben being smart? Now I've seen everything.
Go back! I want to be monkey!
Also awesome as well, and probably tasty too. Anticlimax of the century. Very magnetic personality and appearance. John DiMaggio hitting it out of the park, but do you expect anything else? I don't think the Alien Force lineup is as good as the original, but there are some quite amazing specimens here that take prime advantage of the more grown-up feel of this iteration. Our many villains this series include, but aren't limited to, the DN Aliens, a soul-sucking parasitic alien race taking over the world in small hives, run by the heartless Reinrazik III, or Reiny as his friends call him. Argat, an anti-hero and former bestie of Kevin's, a rat who spends a whole lot of time on the black market. Michael, a pretty boy who uses his powers of prettiness for evil, and Albedo, an evil doppelganger of Ben with an insatiable appetite for chili fries. All pretty good villains, some quirky, others very threatening and foreboding, and that's the balance they're trying to maintain.
What are you doing?
I'll let you know as soon as I figure it out.
Alien Force is hesitant to tell you much about what's happened in universe over the past 5 years, choosing to thrust you into its own story and themes and hoping you get used to it. Ben's got a lot to deal with, having to go this without Mac's guidance, and the outcomes he and Gwen face feel a bit heartier, like they've learned things that'll help them later in the show and in their lives. That can sometimes apply to the characters they meet up with, so connecting stories with more pathos was a big priority for Season 1. As was throwing surprises at you, and paradoxically, holding things back for anticipation. For instance, Ben's new aliens are all here, but introduced at a slower pace. The original series got them all out of the way in 4 episodes, but here, they're spread out across the season to make it clear Ben's approach to fighting has become more tactical. Leaving one of them for the series finale was even a pretty clever idea. The rest of that episode is too clever for me though. It also has one of Alien Force's most notorious trends, setting things up and leaving you to clasp your hands in prayer that they'll be followed through on. Most character introductions end with an obvious wink wink nudge nudge that they'll be brought back, so while they're usually good, they may not feel as complete as most original series episodes. One thing I undeniably like here more than the original series is the banter. Sure, Ben and Gwen sassing each other can make for a nice break from the adventure, but the small talk between the Alien Force trio is on a whole other level of lame. It's bliss to listen to. Real teenagers wouldn't be able to say half the things they do with a straight face, but they say what they're thinking and bounce off each other excellently. I have to hand it to our resident goofball Greg Sipes. He adds way more to Kevin than I ever thought he could have. But he isn't a complete joke, he and the others are worth following, and follow them we do into a second season.
You can't ground me! I'm a superpowered alien!
You're a superpowered alien who's about 5 minutes from forcing me to reconsider a lifelong disbelief in corporal punishment.
Up the stairs, young man!
Apart from one conspicuous low point, I'd have to say Season 2 is the best of Alien Force. It mainly comes down to all the character growth paying off, and the relationships getting stronger. Speaking of ships, how about Gwen getting together with Kevin? They did everything they could to not make this pairing too sudden or contrived, but I can still see why it wouldn't work for some people. I do like some of the scenes they share, like when they dance at the end of Save the Last Dance. I guess dancing with Gwen is her stamp of approval for if you're on good terms with her. That relationship's just one example, but it feels like everyone else is coming together and learning the right things about each other. Ben and Rainey hanging out and alone together is a pretty begrudging and one-sided friendship at first, but it has a very positive impact on the season finale, which, in fact, was written to be like a series finale, with Max finally fully coming back, Azimuth and Cooper from the original series getting some more time to shine, and the many other allies made also being put to good use. There's a lot to enjoy with War of the Worlds, whether you're Team Original Series or Team Alien Force, but it makes you wonder what they could possibly have in store for the next season with such an enticing cliffhanger. If it can't get better than this, what do we do? Maybe gawk at the animation? All 3 seasons of Alien Force look about the same in animation quality, so I'm putting this spiel in the middle of the review. I really like most of the ways this show's art style builds upon its predecessor. All the humans and aliens look a little taller and more mature, while staying true to the comic book vibe of the franchise. They aren't as blatant with it, but it's there with the designs of architecture and transformations, which also look a little more big kid friendly. My chief complaint with Alien Force isn't how dark it looks, it's how dark it looks, as in dim. So many episodes and nearly everything from the first 2 seasons are predominantly set at night, and they don't do much to spruce up the color palette. If you're lucky, you'll get a black sky, but you're mostly getting dark blues from the sky and the green of Ben's jacket and Kevin's car. I'm almost considering calling this the nighttime era of Ben 10, like how the last few seasons of the original Ninja Turtles are nicknamed the Red Sky seasons by fans. This issue may not bother others, it's the stories that should be captivating you more than what color the sky is. And why do Ben 10 if you aren't going to animate it? I have quite the bone to pick with Alien Swarm, as it was partially responsible for putting me off Ben 10 for 13 years. To give Race Against Time a smidge of credit, it knew it was a corny idea to make a live-action Ben 10 movie, and made a corny story with corny acting. It made the most out of this era where Cartoon Network was attempting to catch up to its competitors in live-action stuff. This felt like a fan-made poster come to life. It is so boring and aimless. The story is barely workable as a film, the cast has none of the chemistry I enjoyed in the cartoon, the directing is irritating with the blandest colors and most perplexing cuts, and the new alien form Ben gets for the movie is stupid! This was somehow one of, if not the most viewed premiere in Cartoon Network's history, and if that didn't convince them to make a third live-action Ben 10 movie, we're blessed. I could have just not talked about this one, but unlike Race Against Time, which serves as an alternate finale to the original series, Alien Swarm tries to tie itself into Alien Force, with Gwen and Kevin changing into their Season 3 clothes partway through the film. Oh yeah, there was a Season 3.
This is the fight I was born for.
Now that the DNA menace has been prevented and all the characters are happy, what do you do now? Obviously reset as much as you can. Vilgax is back now, Ben messes with the Omnitrix, reverting Kevin to a new mutant form, and as punishment by Azimuth, loses control over which aliens he becomes like in the old days. If anyone was clamoring for this show to be way more like the original series, I'll give you 2 seconds right now to say I take it back. You're welcome. So yeah, Ben makes a big oopsie daisy in the season premiere trying to hack the Omnitrix so he can defeat Vilgax. A reasonable initiative, but not a good idea to do it on their own in an abandoned building. Season 3 has a lot of moments where Ben rushes into a problem and only makes it worse, having developed an ego thinking he's a hotshot without thinking about why he did so well saving the universe before. That's another element of the original series sneaking back into the franchise, Ben not completely understanding his responsibility, but I guess it's still plausible a 15-year-old would have to learn this. Gwen and Kevin's relationship getting tested is also something I'm not completely sold on, with a lot of dead ends and hurt feelings being preventable if they just told each other things sooner. But I think it led to some pretty strong standalone adventures, and the idea that they're both working to fix a problem separately and come to realize that cooperation is key in their relationship is a nice gesture. It was awesome to see Vilgax return at least, as well as some other old faces like Charmcaster and Ghost Freak. It makes Season 3 feel more in touch with the franchise's past in better ways, like they're willing to apply an Alien Force spin to some of the old gang, make them darker and more threatening. But as it stands, Season 3 is an animated post-game quest that can't always compete with the Hybrid arc. The finale just says, okay, we sorta left this one on a whimper, and sets up one of the major new additions to the next series, Ultimate Alien, the Ultimatrix. I'll save that third series for another time, so I don't know what the Ultimate Aliens can add beyond giving some forms more merchandise. I'll just be on my way, after naming my favourite and least favourite episodes from this series. Busy Box involves the gang finding an extraterrestrial GameCube logo that starts mimicking them and keeps getting stronger and harder to control. They have to be tactful and mindful of their surroundings, and so do you. You have no idea when I'll upload a review of the Cleveland show unannounced. I'm sure this is a take on some specific old sci-fi story, but this sort of challenge is common enough in the genre for me to find it interesting here. Alone Together is a prime example of what Season 2 did well, make the characters more dynamic. It must have been hard for Ben to try befriending Riney, but the effort is worth it in the end. Vendetta is a great one, but I could understand the argument that it's very gimmicky. We learn about Kevin's father, who was actually good friends with Max. Seems fanfiction-y, but I always got the sense Ben and Kevin had some connection that would mean something later. The final battle has the funniest title of the franchise. How many more seasons have we got to go again? 11? This series sends things off the right way, giving you more action with some of the biggest baddies up to that point, and hurriedly introducing the setup of Ultimate Aliens so you aren't lost like last time. War of the Worlds feels much more like an ending though. You get a lot of action here, but also happiness. It really seems like most, if not everyone, is better off after the Hybrid threat gets resolved, and it was resolved through idealistic but relieving means. Max Out is the first one where they finally reunite with Max, but only for a few seconds. Since he was my favourite character in the original series, this teasing of his whereabouts and where he's going got me good. It proved to me that Alien Force could pull it off. Voided was a fresh and exciting exploration of the Null Void, with more people returning than I was prepared to see. It just made me happy seeing some things get cleared up and intriguing new possibilities open up, while the background artists suffer for their art. I mean, Jesus, this must have been hard on them. Paradox sees our trio face off against a time creature running around decaying everything it touches, including Kevin's face. They're able to understand what it is and save it through the help of the mysterious fourth-dimensional Professor Paradox, a British time traveler, so obviously they're going to do some Doctor Who references. Not that I have any problem with that.
Who do you think you're watching?
He returns for my favourite episode of Alien Force, Time Heals, where Gwen travels back to the season premiere to prevent Ben's screw-up, but ends up creating a bad timeline. Great use of the heroes, great use of the story, great use of Charmcaster, and great use of the more mature tone of Alien Force. Now here are some blunders. Simple is all about reinforcing that Ben's losing his touch as a hero, something the premiere already dove into. So all you get out of this one is Ben ruining the lives of two people at war and making the battle worse, and you aren't getting anything from it. X equals Ben plus 2 was a very poor season finale, relying more on mystery than satisfaction. Alien Swarm may have put me off Ben 10, but the sheer uselessness of Alien X softened my interest. Fool's Gold is too strange for its own good, being about some rundown town that lets aliens have spring break for the gold they produce during it. It reminds me of the cheesier episodes from season 3 of the original series, but way more out of place in this more mature series. In Charm's way, it was a pretty lame way to reintroduce Charmcaster, as great as her second appearance here was. It's the low point of Gwen and Kevin's relationship. It's so disappointing to see it get hijacked by a love triangle that would never work. And finally, there's Grounded, for retconning the original series finale for good, and just being tedious all around. Ben's parents have good reason to keep an eye on him at first, but by around the halfway point, there's just no purpose or humour to them grounding Ben while his friends are in danger. Happy ending aside, I thought this was an early Season 1 episode for the longest time. It is so rough and out of place in Season 2. So overall, I wouldn't say Alien Force is as good as the original series, but it's got its own benefits. I respect how many chances it took with this new direction, and think the hybrid arc is a great time. Season 3 had some standout moments, but also a lot of misfires that came from them not being certain where to take the characters. It's an okay season, but holds Alien Force down in the rankings, and that's not even getting into the issues with the sudden premise and smattering of abandoned arcs. I'd say watch the original series first, of course, then Alien Force if you want something a bit more dark and dramatic. I'm happy to see what Ultimate Alien offers, but for now, Hero Time will have to start again another day.
Embark with the warriors on their quests to collect Magi Swords in more new Mighty Magi Swords, next on Cartoon Network.
I'm surrounded by nerds.